We need to start. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Sorry for the delay. We've got conditions on the night of Hurricane Michael coming through were the session is sort of the same way. The conditions are changing momentarily. So we do have some additional changes that will be coming in just a little bit. But first, let me say, please allow the committee members to sit at the seats. We've got 82 seats that are open and available. We have 81 or 82 committee members. So if you would, those of you that are not on approach, we're glad that you're here, but we would ask that you defer to our committee members to give them a place to sit and have access to a microphone to ask any questions that they may have as we proceed through this afternoon's meeting. We will be hearing from several different individuals. One of those will be Governor Deal, who will be here momentarily. Commissioner Black and several of our other commissioners will be here as well to kind of give us some damage updates and assessments as to what's been going on in southwest Georgia and through middle Georgia in the path of where Hurricane Michael came through. But before we go on to our business, I've always thought that it's incredibly important that as we get ready to do the people's business that we do ask for guidance, and I'm going to ask Chairman Paul Battles if he would to do an invocation for us. Yes, sir. Amen. Thank you, sir. So, as I said, we will have some presentations to start off with. We are waiting on an amendment to the document that you had on your desks earlier. And the governor, when he gets here in just a few minutes, will address the changes that will be forthcoming. I will say that the speaker and our leadership and the governor and his staff and Chris Riley and Teresa McCartney have been very gracious in sitting down to make sure that we try as hard as we might to focus on the hurricane relief efforts. So with that said, I'm going to ask you if you would to remain at ease but in your seats until the governor is ready to come in the door, and we will come back to order at that point. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will, please come back to order. The Honorable Nathan Deal is here to address our committee. Governor Deal.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the invitation to speak to you briefly today.
Well, we're glad to have you back in front of us. We just hate it's for this reason, but welcome.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that is a very appropriate observation. Our state has been struck with a disaster unlike any that we have really seen. The losses that are sustained and will have to be dealt with are of a magnitude that most of us have a hard time imagining. I was given a few statistics to illustrate the magnitude of the loss, at least in the one area of forest land. I'm told there were 2.4 million acres of forest land that has been destroyed, $761 million of loss in timber, and that would take about 1.2 million log trucks to remove that amount of timber, and that amounts to about $38 million in timber losses. Now that's just the timber side of things. Obviously on the other agricultural side, it is tremendous as well. And I want to go over briefly with you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll try to do it briefly as to what the main categories are. First of all, we're asking that you increase the governor's emergency fund to $69.3 million, by that amount rather. And that, of course, relates to a lot of things. We have already incurred cost. There are 11 state agencies that have contributed to disaster response, including the Departments of Agriculture, Community Supervision, Corrections, Defense, Human Services, Natural Resources, Public Health, Public Safety, Transportation, GEHMASA, and the State Forestry Commission. All of those have, in many cases, depleted the funds that were previously appropriated for their department and need to be replaced. And of course, we are picking up the local share that would normally be required of local governments, the 25% share. The state is picking that up. Our Georgia Emergency Management Agency and Homeland Security Agency estimates that $213.8 million in direct expenses related to the federal emergency response, to which the state is responsible for $42 million of that cost. The largest share of the expenses is for debris removal by the Army Corps of Engineers, currently estimated to be about $82 million. Now, as I said earlier, the state has agreed to help local governments that have been impacted by covering their share of the expenses, which is approximately $1.98 million for just the debris removal. And that, I think, is the right thing to do under these circumstances. There are several other categories I'll mention to you. The property insurance risk pool, $8.9 million there for the state-funded share of increased agency property insurance premiums to cover property losses, claims that result from damage to state properties during the hurricane. The Georgia Development Authority landowner assistance, and these are the categories there. One is we're recommending $55 million for emergency disaster relief associated to Georgia farmers and counties impacted by Hurricane Michael. $20 million for emergency disaster relief assistance as approved by the State Forestry Commission for cleanup efforts by the Georgia timberland owners in counties impacted by the hurricane. $7.4+ million for the Forestry Commission to replace firefighting equipment used in clearing timberland and that was either destroyed or damaged by Hurricane Michael. That will include some 650 pieces of heavy equipment, including bulldozers, transport trucks, and fire trucks. $21.9 million worth of equipment is already eligible for replacement. So the importance of that is that if this debris is not removed, we could see a forest fire that would maybe be equivalent to what we see in California because of all the dead trees and limbs that are on the ground should something like that happen, which would be a double disaster. There's $770,000 to expedite the construction of the consolidated Miller Early County District 2 office, the Forestry Commission office in Blakely, and to replace the Colquitt and Blakely offices that have been damaged. Now, local and statewide economic development projects, there's $25 million there for One Georgia Authority to provide financial assistance to local communities, and $15 million for regional economic development assistance. That's the REBA grants that you're familiar with those. Transportation funding, a little over $69 million there, and that is, of course, estimated to be the amount as a result of House Bill 170 to be used to offset other expenses that the Department of Transportation has incurred already with regard to what they have responded to during the hurricane. I am recommending that two items be removed from your agenda. The first is the Mercer University School of Medicine expansion in Columbus, and the second is the Chattahoochee Technical College Aviation Academy. Both of these are worthwhile projects. They have local support that we, of course, would hope you would look at in the next session of the General Assembly. I think they are both going to continue to have that local financial support to make these projects be able to go forward. But I am recommending that they be removed at this time. Mr. Chairman, that is a very quick overview of where we are. And I would be glad to respond to any questions, and if I can't answer it, which is probably the likelihood, I'll call on some of my able assistants who are here in the room today to help me.
Okay, thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
And again, thank you for you and our General Assembly leadership for being willing to bring us back, try to help some folks that are hurting mighty rough, mighty bad in Southwest Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, do you have any questions for Governor Deal? We have Chair Lady Houston. Hold on a second. Let me remember how to operate this. Chair Lady.
Thank you. I don't think I'm on. Thank you so much for all you're doing to help rural Georgia. Would you please explain the devastation we had to farmers too? I think farmers have just suffered so much more, and I think timber people hadn't, but farmers have really suffered so much more. And is it $1 billion? How many $1 billion losses we get in farmers?
About $1.6+ billion, I'm told.
And one of the things that really concerns me about the farmers, and I don't know how they're going to, if we don't do something about lining up these cotton fields and everything, it's going to be a terrible loss to our state if we don't take effects like that.
I would point out two things that put those row croppers in a little different posture than the timber people. First of all, many of them do have crop insurance. They are also available to have federal assistance for their losses.
I'm not sure we haven't even gotten the money from the last song.
Talk to your Congress people about that one. Obviously, a lot of folks are waiting on what the federal response is going to be. I know our Congress people that we've talked with, especially those in the affected area, are lobbying daily for federal assistance to be forthcoming very soon. But that is a valid point. I would point out, though, that under the Georgia Development Authority amount that I mentioned, we have upped it from our original request of $30 million. We've upped it to the $55 million amount, which is designed to try to address some of the row crop farmers' problems in that regard.
Chair Lady Taylor, and I think we got the mics fixed now. Maybe not. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll talk loud. First, I want to thank you and your office for everything that you've done. My district had a large amount of damage, and they responded so well. Everybody from GDOT to the ag to forestry, and we are still in that state of repair.
Right.
I'm overwhelmed with the generosity of what this house is trying to do, and we look forward to it. And I can't emphasize enough, there is generational damage. Some of these forests and pecan crops, you can't understand it until you see it. But our state has stepped up, and I'm very proud of what we have done and what we are doing today. And on behalf of my district, I would like to thank everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I don't see any. Again, Governor, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I just make a very brief statement
Yes.
in conclusion? This will probably be the last time I'll have an opportunity to speak to you. I thought I had said that with finality after the last session, and nobody knows what Mother Nature has in store for us, but surely to goodness, we're not going to have to do this again. But I do appreciate your willingness to reassemble and to deal with this issue in a meaningful way. And this is dealing with it in some respects, a conservative way, in a way that we can afford to do it. Now, obviously, we cannot pay for all of the losses, nor should we be expected to pay for all of the losses at the state level. But we do think that we can afford to do this. We have been very fortunate that our revenue has continued to come into our state, and it is that overage that we have collected this far in the fiscal year above what we had originally budgeted under the budget that you approved during the regular session that has allowed us to increase this revenue estimate as we have done. So thank you for what you've done. I'll miss all of you. And hopefully we'll have a chance to cross paths sometime in the future. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We have several individuals that are here to answer questions, but I had asked Commissioner Black if he would come this morning or this afternoon now and make a few comments to tell us, kind of give us a bird's eye view or a mind picture of some of the devastation that he's seen. He and I both had the opportunity with Forestry Commission Director Williams to fly on the Thursday after the storm over a lot of the devastated area. And I know Commissioner Black and his team with Georgia Department of Ag have been on the ground, boots on the ground, doing anything and everything that's within their power there at the Department of Ag to help folks, get folks back in business, make sure that the food supply that is still there in grocery stores and convenience stores is safe for folks to be able to eat and not get sick from. But Commissioner Black, if you would come forward, would give us a few brief comments, kind of a nutshell of what you've seen and some of the things going on. Thank you for being with us.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members and friends. It's thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We can give you a little picture of what's going on, what's been happening departmentally, but also from the industry standpoint. And then, if it would be fitting, Mr. Chairman, I know there's a lot of moving parts based upon where this investment that you will be, the proposition that'll be before you. But I can maybe peel the onion back a little bit to some of the initial thoughts of how we would utilize these resources that you'll be considering. First, be very aware and be very you can anchor yourself in the fact that the figures that we've been using, when it says $2.5 billion of commodity loss, that's what it is. We've had a little bit of a ray of encouragement on the cotton side, because some of the cotton's not quite as bad, but some of it is complete devastation. Cotton is in the neighborhood of $550 million. Part of the devastation there too is psychological, because we had the best crop we've ever had. I have a phone video from actually from Johnson County, close to you. And so we think about the deep southwest Georgia, but this video is, the young farmer was so excited because he was videoing with his phone the yield monitor in the cotton picker. And the yield monitor was reading 1875, 1950, 2000, 2050, 2100, 1980, 2200. The man was picking 4 bale cotton the day before the storm, which is unprecedented. And then, of course, you go back, and he's not in complete devastation, but psychologically he is, because he had 900 pounds left. And so that doesn't cover, crop insurance doesn't cover what you could have made. And so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. Peanuts have come out pretty good. I'm thankful for that. Half the crop was already in. And the remaining half, there's been some challenges, but not nearly the devastation in other commodities. $480 million on fall vegetables. Part of the problem with that is 2/3 of the crop was still in the field, so we lost 2/3 of it. But once again, the opportunity cost was there, because, as Representative Watson can clearly probably has already told many of you, we've talked many times, squash was at $16 a box, sweet corn was $25 a crate. I mean, prices were as high as they've been. They were exactly where they needed to be to actually kind of recover over the last couple of years. But then 2/3 of that is gone. That figures $480 million. Our pecan loss is the, quote, generational loss that we've all been talking about. That number, we still feel comfortable of it being at $600 million. I think that number that's a lot of money. It's complete devastation. But where our ongoing problems are going to be with pecan is that I think 250 to 300 of that is recurring, because it's gone. It has vaporized from the rural economy of southwest Georgia. So that's not only, the $600 million of cotton is not there this year. Hopefully we can get back next year if we can get folks financed and get back in the field in the spring. But the pecan's gone. And that's something that southwest Georgia is going to be dealing with. And we're the number one pecan producing state in the nation, but we may not be able to say that for a generation, if ever again. That's how serious that is. So we did lose 129 poultry houses. That was an interesting part of the problem too, because part of our team gets in there in the depopulation of the birds and trying to restore That's just, I want to thank so much EPD. We had great cooperation with being able to actually burn the residuals, and all of that has just worked hand in glove with different agencies, and Homer and Gema and all of our teams have been working very closely together, Mr. Chairman, and over 200 of our team has been in the field. We have 600 employees, but 200 of them have been a part of the response. We literally had thousands of food sales establishments to check out to work with. We had 14 pet shelters that we operated or worked with local and private individuals during that time. Thankfully, that was not this time was not as big of an evacuation problem as it has been in some other storms, but same thing on the equine side. But we are committed. I will maybe wrap up with this, and if there are any other specific questions, either before or after, I'd be more than happy to answer them with any of you. But we are, what we found ourselves in, and we've explained it this way to media, and then during the president's visit and the vice president's visit, and it's a very sobering thing for us, as many of us do. You go back to your communities, you'll go to a Farm City Week celebration, and many of you make the speech of how agriculture is important to our economy and how we lead in the production of peanuts and pecans and forest products and all. Many of us can make that speech. We are accustomed to leading in production. Now we lead in destruction. But what we've got to do as a family of Georgians is lead in reconstruction. And that's what I'm committed to do. Every breath that we have, we'll be committed to working alongside you. Now, what you have proposed very quickly, the Georgia Development Authority, for many of you that may not, it doesn't show up. It is an attached agency. It is an authority, but it's been around a long, long time. During the Depression, there were entities developed at the federal level called Rural Rehabilitation Corporations, and many of them have been successful, but they've used them for rural housing and doing some loans or guaranteeing some loans and different things like that. Well, we've been very successful in Georgia, and actually our GDA is a derivative of that old Rural Rehabilitation Corporation. There's still a service agreement that we have back to USDA, but there are no state funds in it, and there are no federal funds. It's just what's built up over time, and we make farm loans. I'm by virtue of the job y'all let me do, I'm by statute chairman of the board. The board members, there are 5 board members, they're appointed by the governor. And we make farm loans. They're guaranteed real estate loans, 80-20 guarantee, they're direct loans with an 80-20 position and 80% loans. We made several yesterday. Some are $300,000, some are $800,000, but anyway, about a $69 million book of business that we have. And we do very, very well. And we serve a lot of people. 285 loans are on the books right now. The proposal, and Chairman England and I visited, we were visiting before the wind stopped blowing. Because, frankly, I never even thought about the state being a portion of this. But because we thought could we use the old rural rehab conduit from the federal level to make some short-term, long amortization, but short-term balloon notes at a very low interest that maybe could help Mr. Leader do a fertilizer bill, do a Helena bill, a $200,000 note, because we're not going to be able to do lots of $1 million notes. There's just no way to do that or get the security and the real estate to do that. And so that's where this idea came from, just the wind hadn't stopped blowing. And I thank Chairman England working with the governor's staff that's been wonderful and came up with some numbers. Well, maybe we could do, if we get some state money, then that would help us with the leverage that we need to go to the feds. And I have talked ad nauseum with the Secretary. I will be with him again on Friday. There are groups of farmers today in congressional visits, even as we speak. I'll be in Washington tomorrow and back tomorrow night. We're working on this to try to say, if we do this, could we do a 3 or 4 or a 5-to-1 match, or a 70-30 match, or somehow that would come up with in order to elevate this. And so we're going to work very hard on that. But I think the good faith effort the state of Georgia is stepping forward is something that's very remarkable, a first time for all of us, but something I think we can use. And then there's another thing. There is a debris removal component, I believe, in that $20 million request that governor's made. And we'll be working with the Georgia Forestry Commission, and Mr. Williams and Chuck and I will work close together. There are a lot of moving parts in that one. We've been talking about some type of a cost share where if a landowner did so much, then maybe we could match that in some way. But that's what that other $20 million part of that proposal is about. So, Mr. Chairman, we will be, our team is ready, and we're thankful, first of all, for the confidence you place in us. It's a big job, and there's a lot to do, but this is a pretty important place, this place we call home, and a lot of our kindred, all of our folks are hurting, and so that's our job, and we look forward to being able to work with them along the way and working with you. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Okay, I'm going to let you catch your breath for just a second. I was with the commissioner on I guess it was 5 days right after the storm, that Wednesday morning on to that Sunday afternoon, and I didn't envy him at that point because he was on the phone so much. I'm not sure he had a chance to even eat a pack of crackers for that 5 days between newspapers and individuals and everyone calling, needing help, and him trying to solve problems and help folks in the field. So we certainly appreciate that, and if no one else tells you thank you, know that I tell you thank you for that dedication and hard work. I know that the storm has taken a lot of time away from family, but at the same time, you've been helping family too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that.
These folks are our family. Representative Gardner, I think that 1, 2, 3. Oh, excuse me, Representative Prince.
Yes. Yes, sir, my friend.
To make sure that you get what you need. Get your request. However, going forward, is there any vision or any initiatives that maybe we can look into advancing or investing in some of our research institutions, University of Georgia, the Fort Valley State University, people down there as well as other universities to help increase our crops, do some studies, some research and development to maybe we can, so we won't run into all these problems that we've had in the past as far as growing crop and things like that.
Representative, I would always say that one of the best investments the state could ever make, or the federal government through the current farm bill, hopefully we're going to get a farm bill out here pretty soon, one of the best investments that we as taxpayers could ever make is in the basic research of agriculture. Improving productivity, improving drought tolerance, improving insect tolerance, all those type things. Those things are underway. They're underway at all of our major. Matter of fact, the plant breeding program at the University of Georgia is the premier breeding program on the face of this globe. That's a great asset that we have at UGA. But I leave it to individual farmers to determine what their crop mixes are. They know best how to run their business. But I do agree with you from a standpoint of irrigation efficiency, equipment technology, anything, monitoring, any of those type of things that we can do as taxpayers to make an investment, that ultimately helps all of us. I think it's a good point.
And I've gotten out of the habit of this up here. I'm sorry. Any other questions for Commissioner Black? Commissioner, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and to all of y'all too. I saw Richard Elliott a while ago and others. I think it's very important, and I'm grateful. We've maintained very close communication almost on a daily basis with Atlanta media and other major media markets. I would encourage that you do the same thing back home, because folks, we cannot let Georgia forget this. We cannot move on to just the next thing that's coming around the horn. And I am very grateful. We've had from WAVE to here at public radio here in Atlanta that's been very responsive, and others. But let's know that if we can help you with data, you can go to agr.georgia.gov and you can find all the updates there. If that would help you in your reports back home, I would ask you to continue to do that. There's a Hurricane Michael button right there on the front of our website. You can get all the statistics, all the maps. There's B-roll. We were airborne 3 days after the storm. It took 3 hours of B-roll. They've been used by Forbes, been in Forbes magazine. We've been on CNN. We've been everywhere just trying to tell the story. And that's a very important role that all of us have, is to continue to tell this story. You can count on us. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the posture we are in is, you had heard the governor mention there were some changes. Those changes did come as a late discussion, late morning, early afternoon. So we are in the posture of waiting for the amendment that has been made to be presented to you, to get printed and in front of you before we move forward. But I will tell you that we do have Director Chuck Williams with the Forestry Commissioner, Commissioner Russell McMurray with DOT, and I think Director Homer Bryson is here as well from GEMA. And there's Commissioner Mark Williams as well with DNR. And what I would like to do, if those four individuals I just mentioned, if y'all would make your way up to the microphone, and I just want to see if our folks have any questions for these four agencies, or anything that you would like to ask them while we're waiting for the document to complete being printed. And as soon as it's available, then we will move forward with what we're doing. So the floor is open for questions. Now, y'all been eating me up on the floor asking questions, and the four professionals that can answer them are standing right in front of you. And Andy Welch, Chairman Welch, has a question.
Thank you. This is for Commissioner Williams. Commissioner, in terms of the forestry equipment that is being requested in this package, is it not true that the age of the forestry equipment already had exceeded almost their usable lifespan, and thus some of this equipment would have been already requested in our supplemental, but is actually needed presently in order to go through and clean out the down timber, to remove it around areas that may be a future fire hazard or a potential fire hazard, as well as areas of transportation for emergency vehicles, first responders, etc. And isn't it further true that the need of this is where we have insect populations, hot spots, if you will, of insect populations? I was talking to Vice Chairman Nimmer about this, but where we have those areas that if we don't treat those, especially in this time of year, that we will have a larger problem with infestation in our timber harvest going forward in the spring and in the summertime.
Chairman Welch, thank you very much for the question and for the opportunity to respond to that. For the first part of your question, the answer is yes. Any equipment funds that are proposed in this budget that come through will be used by us really in our normal equipment replacement cycle. You would just actually be moving that up somewhat in the cycle, but our replacement cycle on firefighting bulldozers is 20 years. Our replacement cycle on transports to move that equipment is also 20 years, so we would just be staying within that cycle, but accelerating a little bit where we have been behind from that standpoint. You mentioned forest health. That is a significant concern to us. Also, the potential of wildfire. There's a lot of fuel on the forest floor that while we're hopeful it will get salvaged in a useful and economic manner, historical evidence from hurricanes in the southeast indicates that is really not anything to be very optimistic about. So we're already having one eye very firmly on the next several months as that fuel that's on the forest floor dries out. What are the wildfire implications going to be? You mentioned insects and forest health. Certainly we've got a fertile breeding ground now on the forest floor for insects, beetles, and critters that just really have the potential to ravage our forests. So I think you will be seeing, as has been alluded to, potentially some support there to help these landowners actually clean up the forest floor. It will benefit them as landowners as they hopefully elect to reforest, but it will benefit the entire forest sector and indeed our rural communities to help us maintain the excellent record we have in Georgia of avoiding those catastrophic wildfires like we see in the western part of the country that tend to move from forest fires to destroying homes and neighborhoods and communities. Thank you.
Follow up if I could. So what we're doing here is we're in addressing some of these situations which is a small amount of money relative to the damage that's been done and the projected damage over the next couple generations, is we're avoiding compounding a tragic event. So we've had the hurricane strike, we have the resulting tragedy that's occurred, but by addressing this quickly and promptly and presently, what we're doing is we're working to avoid compounding that problem by further beetle infestations elsewhere in other established pines, and we're also working to prevent forest fire and the resulting damage that could happen to life and property.
That is very much the case, Mr. Chairman. Even in the hardest hit areas where we're seeing that catastrophic timber devastation, meaning that over 95% of the timber stand has either been severely damaged or destroyed, there's still some viable stands of timber. It was interesting to watch Mother Nature's action depending on sort of the dynamics of the timber stand, the age, the stocking density. In some cases, I don't think we as mere mortals can explain why this timber stand was devastated and this one suffered damage, but not at a devastating level. But yes, on the landscape, which is really what we're focused on here, it will make a material impact on the landscape. And I would just like to point out, for those of you that are from that part of the state, you know this much better than I, but Commissioner Black alluded to it as far as the different impacts. Obviously, there's an economic impact in the storm path area as it relates to forestry, both for the landowners, for the mills, the processors, for those support industries that support the forest industry. There's certainly direct economic impact there. There's ecological impact, as we've said more than once. When it rains in Georgia like it's doing now, and the entire state of Georgia is getting a rain, 2 out of every 3 raindrops fall on timberland in Georgia. So timberland plays a very important role from an ecological standpoint. But I don't think that we can certainly forget about those social and community impacts that particularly that part of southwest Georgia have incurred. Those folks have been through a lot, and again, getting those crops back growing, whether it's next year's cotton crop or peanut crop, or whether it's the next generation's pecan orchard or timber stand, I think are critically important to the work that this very body has been working on for the past couple of years on rural economic development.
Next question, Al Williams. We're trying to get you a mic that works. Try again. There we go.
I was going since half of the folk up there used to be in the Williams caucus, particularly, I think I know part of the question, but the question for you, Cousin Chuck,
I love you, brother.
With the input of state monies, especially with the cleanup because of the threat of forest fires when it dries out, will the state have any input as to the letting of contracts to do this cleanup on private property?
Representative Williams, I would have to say I would think so, but as the legislation moves through the process, and assuming it is passed by both chambers and the governor signs it into law, then there will be rulemaking that I think probably our agency, Commissioner Black, and the Georgia Development Authority, and in some cases the Department of Revenue on some of the programs will all be sitting down and looking at the rulemaking issues. And I think certainly the desire we would have is for any of that to be, quote, Georgia grown, if you will, but unless it's in the legislation that you have, we will be dealing with that in the rulemaking process.
Okay, just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, I can appreciate that, and it makes a lot of sense, but the old rule, I'm willing to cut half of it, that he who has the goal makes the rule. The legislature should have some say in that prior, since we have a little something to do with the goal. That's just my recommendation. That needs to certainly be administered by department heads once it's done, but we certainly need to have some rules on how this money is going to be appropriated for cleanup. Thank you very kindly.
I would defer to the wisdom of this body on that, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Representative Williams, I'll be glad to talk to you a little bit. The envisioning is more of a grant to the individual landowners to make sure the work gets done as a public safety issue. So I don't know how much the state's going to be involved with that as much as it is the private individuals on trying to get the work done and making sure it is done. Okay, next, Chairman Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Mark Williams, I know we got different Williams. Commissioner, I know DNR and a lot of these agencies have already put funds out there, and some of the appropriations we're doing is to backfill that. But looking at the map, and I know you're familiar with it, we've got a lot of WMAs that took direct hits southwest part of Georgia, and I was just wondering if we've got information about what it's going to take to clean those WMAs up. I know a lot of them were heavily timbered, had a lot of heavy timber, and so the General Assembly can get its hands around, again, potential funds that we may need to help ensure that our WMAs are back up and running, our hunters and the folks who enjoy the great outdoors are able to assess our WMAs.
So our direct cost for the event were about 1.3, a little better, million. Of that, we're going to be reimbursed by, on the federal level, all but about $335,000. We did sustain damage at some of our facilities, around $5 million, I think, Terry. And we'll be going through the insurance process on that. We do have a timber estimate of, I can find it here. I had it in my book. Here we go. Of about $14.5 million. And that mainly was at Silver Lake Wildlife Management Area. Wildlife does pretty good. They're pretty adaptable, critters are, a lot more so than us at times. Of note, we did lose some red cockaded, that was one of our main red cockaded woodpecker, which is an endangered species habitat down on Silver Lake Management Area, so we're working to restore that. But thank you for the question.
Well, it was a good question, and I did get my letter from Silver Lake. I got drawn for there, and they said beware, it's going to be tough hunting conditions.
Yeah, it's going to be tough hunting down there, rough woods. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Representative Chairman Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not as much a question. I just wanted to acknowledge that I've had a lot of contact with Commissioner McMurray with GDOT, and I know you guys, y'all have had some unexpected things to deal with some of the issues happening with the debris removal on the federal level with the Corps that a lot of people aren't aware of, with some of the contract disputes that occurred that halted the work on the federal level. And I just want to acknowledge publicly, because that was I had videos of your forces when y'all met and had to reorganize, and to see that kind of response that happened in just a matter of a few hours, where you had to bring everybody back in from all the way across the state and pull your forces off of all these other important maintenance contracts going on across the whole state. But that was like a sign of the cavalry coming in, just to see that at daylight that next morning. But I just want to tell you how much we appreciate all the work GDOT's done, and just for Georgians being patient all the way across this state, because like I said, y'all have pulled the forces, just like with all of your departments, from doing important things that are happening all across the state. And it's been amazing to see how patient the rest of Georgia has been, because they could have been jumping up and down going, why aren't you back? Why aren't you back? But they realize that there's more important things going on, and people are hurting in Southwest Georgia. But thank y'all for everything y'all have done and the amazing response. And Commissioner Bryson, I mean, I couldn't believe it when hours after the storm, you're answering your phone, because I know it's ringing off the hook. But thank you, and there's so many things that people don't think about, because this is unprecedented what y'all have been dealing with and what we've been dealing with. But for what you were able to do the next morning for me and for our area with our food bank and getting them some funds so they could feed meals to these people and these linemen. I mean, there was 7,000 linemen my food bank was feeding within 18 hours after this storm hit, and they wouldn't have been able to do that without your quick assistance. And then for providing security from the National Guard, because we were having issues with things like fuel being stolen out of these food delivery trucks. So there was just so many unprecedented things that were taking place, and the response was just amazing. So not a question, but I just wanted to publicly say that.
I would like to echo that as well, and the same comments that I made about Commissioner Black hold true for these four gentlemen and many others. Department of Public Safety, Colonel McDonough and his crew, our folks with the National Guard, and our National Guard volunteers that were called up in the areas that they went to, our linemen, whether it be with your EMCs, your municipal electric authorities, or Georgia Power, and all the different power companies that came in. I was meeting trucks on 75 from all the way up into the northeast coming that way, headed to Southwest Georgia, and it is truly a Herculean effort that goes into the response to one of these storms. And Homer, from me to you, thank you for having the patience to herd all the cats in the same room, and to the other three gentlemen standing up here, thank you to y'all as well, and your crews and your men. I'd see forestry equipment going up and down the road. I'd see DNR folks going up and down the road. I'd see the yellow DOT trucks going up and down the road, and it was an amazing sight to see. And Director Bryson, I think, deserves a lot of credit for the ability and the coordination that he has brought to GEMA and Homeland Security there in the response overall. And my hat is off to y'all and to all the people, whether it's a trooper or whether it was a DNR agent or a chainsaw crew from the Forestry Commission or the guy on a skid steer with DOT or somebody driving a dump truck. My hat is off to everyone, and our linemen and all the others for the response that y'all brought. I'll just put it this way: y'all brought a feeling of comfort to a lot of people that didn't know which way to turn, and y'all, your agencies and your individuals that make up your agencies, brought a lot of comfort to individuals just seeing you there, whether the first tree had been cut or not, but just seeing you there. So our hat is off to y'all, and thank you, and please relay our appreciation from the General Assembly and mine personally back to your folks for the response. I see Jay Roberts sitting in the back of the room. I know he didn't have anything to do with the chainsaw during that time. I'm not even sure. He bought one a few years ago, and it didn't work real well, and he took it back to the store to ask what was wrong with it, and the guy cranked it, and Jay jumped and said, "What's that noise?" So, okay, I'm going to call on Chairman Sam Watson. As the governor had mentioned, there are a few changes, and Chairman Watson has been deeply engaged. Thank y'all, gentlemen. Chairman Watson has been deeply engaged since before we came into session, as well as many of you others as well, in making sure that we try to have as an appropriate response as possible that we can from the state level and trying to bridge the gap between now and when the federal response comes. As the governor stated and others have stated, there's no way that we as a state can fully respond. We know that our food and fiber and shelter products and production is a national security issue. And as other states have suffered, we have always been willing to put our money where our mouth is as individuals and taxpayers to help relief for those other states. And so we're looking to our friends on the national level to do something very similar as we suffer now. So, Chairman Watson, many of you, or most of you, should have a copy of 4 amendments in front of you. And Chairman Watson is now going to explain those 4 amendments to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And if you don't mind, before I explain my amendment, I just want to first thank Governor Deal on his leadership in calling this special session. You know, if you're in the agriculture and forestry world right now, you hear a lot about timing. The timing of this storm could not have been worse. The timing of banknotes could not have been worse. But the timing of this special session could not be better, because we have put hope, we have put excitement, and we've put motivation in the lives of many Georgians right now today and this week doing what we're doing here. And I want to thank him greatly for that. Also want to thank our commissioner on another personal note. On October 10th, early that morning, as I went to my farm to start evaluating the damage, I texted our commissioner and I said, "Commissioner, this is going to be bad." And that was the case then, and that has been the case as the hours and the days and now months have gone by. But he has worked 24/7 for the farmer, and he is continuing to do that, and I'm so proud to have him as my commissioner. And for this body, you know, it's our job to come up here to labor, not for ourselves, but for others. And that's what this piece of legislation does. That's what this amendment does. And again, I just want to thank our governor. I want to thank our speaker. I want to thank our lieutenant governor, the governor's staff, and Chris, and all that they've done to make this happen. And I hope that you all will support me on this, and I'll explain it. If you'll look in section 13, there we are increasing the 30 million, 13.8, 13.1 section from 30 million to 25 million. If you come on down to section 17, you'll see the reduction of the $9 million. And going on down to section 27.
Raise your hand if you don't have a copy of the amendments.
Sorry,
We've got a few extra. They literally hot off the press.
Everybody catch up, or? Section 27, you'll see the increase in the governor's emergency fund of roughly 19 million, I believe. And then in section 46, you'll see another reduction of 35 million. And those were the changes that the governor mentioned. And again, I would just appreciate your support. The landscape of Southwest Georgia has been changed for many decades to come, but I think us being here this week and this piece of legislation will get us on the right foot forward to continue to grow our economy down there. So thank all of you.
Okay, so we have 4 amendments, and you'll see that the 4 amendments, 2 of those are cut amendments, 2 of those are add amendments in front of you. And we have a question, number 22. It's Al Williams, Representative Williams.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like a language amendment in an abundance of caution with the kind of money we're talking about. I would like to amend and ask that all awards be made in accordance with GDOT's bidding contract on any awarding of state funds.
The issue we would have with that, we are on GDOT, the only thing we are doing there is recognizing existing motor fuel funds that have come in above the amount projected in this year, in this fiscal year. So we're not doing anything other than recognizing those funds in GDOT.
I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't too clear. I was not referring to GDOT getting funds. I was referring primarily to funds that will be granted for cleanups, that we use GDOT's bidding process as a model to award state money to do these cleanups. I was not referring to. That was my reference.
I got you. And I think that's pretty much standard procedure, because on your forestry, you're talking about on all the different appropriations.
I'm talking about on all, but particularly forestry, because I understood you, and correct me if I did, I understood you to say that these were going to be individual grants when I asked about this earlier.
Correct.
And in abundance of caution, I think that even when a person gets a grant, this is state money. There ought to be some ways. I just want to make sure that when you get it cleaned up, you use state money in a very transparent way, that we can see how it was spent, and that the work that we agreed to was done.
Okay, I got you. I think we can do that instead of putting it here. I think in our discussions with Georgia Development Authority, as they will be the issuing agent, we can make sure that's handled. That's taken care of there. Thank you. Other questions? Chairman Welch?
Mr. Chairman, just a parliamentary inquiry. What is the posture here to move the amendments, or is the posture to move the bill and then also address the amendments?
We will, okay. Thank you for the question. So we have the bill in front of us, House Bill 1EX. So that is the business before the committee this afternoon. So it comes as a motion by its introduction. And so at this point, the floor is open for the adoption of the amendments. And after the adoption of those amendments, then we will have a motion for due pass by the committee substitute. So as the Rules Committee and as we look at it on the floor tomorrow, it will be coming as a package as a House Appropriations Committee substitute for House Bill 1EX.
Is it appropriate time to second the motion as on the floor?
It is an appropriate time to second the motion for the underlying bill.
Yes.
And so therefore, now we have the motion for the 4 amendments. And we have numerous motions and seconds that we accept all 4 amendments as a package. Do we have any objection? Any objection? Okay. Any further discussion? Any further questions? We're now voting on the 4 amendments offered as a package by Chairman Watson. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. So we'll move forward now for the passage of the underlying bill as a due pass by committee substitute, incorporating the 4 amendments. We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion on the underlying bill as amended? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience, and we are adjourned.